Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Nashtaprayeshu Bhatreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtiki. I think I wrote text 31 in the message, but we covered until text 35, looks like. So we'll start from text 36. So Krishna, I know it's been a big break, long break, and so Krishna, this chapter 3 of Bhagavad Gita, he speaks about karma yoga. And he talks about various duties, but in the end he says in text 35, he says, it's far better to discharge one's prescribed duties, even though faultily, than another's duties perfectly. Destruction in the course of performing one's own duty is better than engaging in another's duty, for to follow another's path is dangerous. And in the Purport, Prabhupada says, materially prescribed duties are duties enjoined according to one's psychophysical condition, under the spell of the modes of material nature. Means prescribed duties means the duties for Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, and Sannyasi, Vanprasthi, Grihastha, and Brahmachari, according to the psychophysical condition of that jiva in that particular body. So that's why how the duties are enjoined. So if somebody is a Kshatriya, here Prabhupada says, for example, a Brahman who is in the mode of goodness is non-violent, whereas a Kshatriya who is in the mode of passion is allowed to be violent. So as such, for a Kshatriya, it is better to be vanquished following the rules of violence than to imitate a Brahman who follows the principles of non-violence. And this is basically to tell Arjun that you better do your duty as a Kshatriya. You're a Kshatriya. You have the qualities of Kshatriya. You cannot just run away from the battlefield. And further Prabhupada says, but as long as one is on the material platform, he must perform his duties according to the modes of material nature. At the same time, he must have a full sense of Krishna consciousness. But that sense of Krishna consciousness, that comes from performing bhakti. Everybody can be a devotee. Anybody can be. Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, anybody can be a devotee because that's a constitutional position of the soul, not the body. But the body is, we get according to our consciousness, which could be of Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Shudra. So as a devotee, one has to do both. Or one has to try to do both. Until he is fully surrendered, then he doesn't need to do anything. But for Arjun here, in the end, Krishna will ask him to be a devotee. Sarva dharman pariteja. Dharma means even varnashram. Give it up. Just surrender unto me. But still, to set an example, and not for yourself, Arjun, you fight for me. So fighting had to go on. But in what consciousness? Here it's the third chapter, so it's Karma Yoga. So Krishna is slowly taking him up. Right now he's just saying, oh, this is your duty. You have to do your duty. But then Arjuna asks another question. Ath kena parayukto ayam papam charati purusha anichchanapi varshneya maladev niyojita. Arjun said, O descendant of Vrishni, by what is one impelled to sinful acts, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force? Then if everybody is doing their duty, why do we commit sins and impel to sinful acts? We don't want to, even if we don't want to. A living entity has part and parcel of the Supreme, is originally spiritual, pure, and free from all material contaminations. Therefore, by nature, he is not subject to the sins of the material. But when he is in contact with the material nature, he acts in many sinful ways without hesitation, and sometimes even against his will. As such, Arjuna's question to Krishna is very sanguine or very intelligent as to the perverted nature of the living entities. Although the living entity sometimes does not want to act in sin, he is still forced to act. So sinful actions are not, however, impelled by the super soul within, but are due to another cause, as the Lord explains in the next verse. So Arjun asks, okay, you're talking about duty and this and that. Well, what about sin? How come we commit sinful activity? Although many times we don't want to, but still somehow the mind really takes over and we end up committing sin. Shri Bhagwan Uvacha, Kama Esha Krodha Esha Rajoguna Samudbhav Mahashano Mahapapma Vidhyena Mibarina. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, it is lust only. Arjun, which is born of contact with the material mode of passion and later transformed into wrath, and which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world. Lust only. What is lust? Lust is not just attraction between boy and a girl. That's also lust. Lust means, actually it means to enjoy my own senses. Even eyes, ears, nose, everything. If you want to enjoy them separately from Krishna, that is lust. And every living entity who has fallen into the material world wants to enjoy his senses. That's the whole purpose of the material creation. We are stuck here because we want to enjoy our senses. Either 1, 2, or all 10 of them. Working senses, knowledge acquiring senses. We are studying this in Bhagavatam, the Sankhya system. In purport, Prabhupada says, when a living entity who's completely pure, spiritual, transcendental, comes in contact with the material creation, his eternal love for Krishna is transformed into lust in association with the mode of passion. So eternal love, Prabhupada uses every word very, very carefully. Is eternal love. Love is eternal for Krishna. It has no beginning, no end. That is eternal. But it gets transformed into lust in association with the mode of passion. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, the definition of love and lust is given. So love is Krishna Indriya Priti Vancha Dhare Premna. Kamendriya Priti Vancha Dhare, Atmendriya Priti Vancha Dhare Kamana. If we want to please Krishna, Krishna's senses, that is prem. If we want to please our senses, that is kam, lust. And Prabhupada says, or in other words, the sense of love of God becomes transformed into lust, as milk in contact with sour tamarind is transformed into yogurt. Then again, when lust is unsatisfied, it turns into wrath. Wrath means anger. Wrath is transformed into illusion, and illusion continues the material existence. And there's nobody in the whole creation, past, present, or future, when the lust is going to be completely satisfied. It always remains unsatisfied. We might desire something, we might get it for some certain time, but we enjoy it, but then it becomes into greed. We want to have more. And at certain time, our desires, our lust will not be satisfied. Even Hiranyakashipu could not satisfy all his desires. So what to speak of us? He had control of the whole universe. Except Brahmaloka, he had controlled the whole universe. But he could not control his 5-year-old boy. So lust, this is the quality of lust. It is never satisfied completely. And when it is not satisfied, because we are so attached to it, we become angry. As Prabhupada said, these days, all these boys and girls, they say, I love you, I love you. And with 14th February coming up, and Valentine's Day, and there'll be love in the air, and this and that. It's not love, it's all lust. Boys are telling girls, girls are telling boys that you satisfy my senses. Basically, you are there to satisfy my senses. And if you don't satisfy, either I kick you out, I block you, or people go to even extremes to killing or through acids or something nonsense. But it's all lust. There's no such thing as love in this material world. This is not at all love. Love is for Krishna only. When one wants to serve him, just like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said in Shikshashtakam, you please me or you hurt me by not being present before me, but I love you unconditionally. That is Radharani's expressions or thoughts for Krishna. That is love. And Prabhupada did say that in material world, the only thing that comes close to spiritual love is the love of mother for her child. That comes close because mother takes care of the child, loves her child, goes through all the troubles for her child unconditionally. She doesn't demand anything in the back. But rest everywhere, it's all lust. Therefore, lust is the greatest enemy of the living entity. It's lust only which induces a pure living entity to remain entangled in the material world. To remain entangled. Why? Because of lust, we develop desire to enjoy something. And those desires will remain unfulfilled. And to fulfill those desires, we get a new body and we try to satisfy those desires of the senses again and again and again and again. Different senses, different desires. We try. And then while we are trying to enjoy or trying to fulfill those desires, we develop new consciousness, we develop new bodies. We get new bodies. That's it. And that's why it remains entangled in the material world. Pure living entity. Living entity is always pure, but it remains entangled. Wrath is a manifestation of the mode of ignorance. These modes exhibit themselves as wrath and other corollaries. If therefore the mode of passion, instead of being degraded into the mode of ignorance, is elevated to the mode of goodness by the prescribed methods of living and acting, then one can be saved from the degradation of wrath by spiritual attachment. So instead of going down from passion to ignorance, one has to elevate himself to goodness by following the prescribed method of living and acting. So this prescribed method, one is a Varnashram system. Varnashram system is for the proper upkeep, proper functioning of the society. But then, as it's a pure living entity, one can go beyond Varnashram system to the devotional service. Then he goes even beyond the mode of ignorance, a mode of goodness. He can. And to remain always at that level, one has to continuously work hard. And obviously, Krishna also helps. Devotees also help. But one has to work hard himself also. So when we say na mera aapki kripa se sab kaam ho raha hai, yes, kripa is of Krishna, but kripa means kar and pa. So first we have to do ourselves, then we get the mercy. We cannot just be sitting at home watching TV and doing all sorts of nonsense. नहीं भगवान की कृपा होगी तो मंदिर बुलाएंगे तो मैं जाऊं. अरे that's another ignorance, nothing else. The Supreme Personality of God had expanded himself into many for his ever-increasing spiritual bliss. And the living entities are part and parcels of this spiritual bliss. They also have partial independence, but by misuse of the independence, when the service attitude is transformed into the propensity for sense enjoyment, they come under the sway of lust. This material creation is created by the Lord to give facility to the conditioned souls to fulfill these lustful propensities, and when completely baffled by prolonged lustful activities, the living entities begin to inquire about their real position. Every word in Prabhupada's purpose are amazing. See how he writes. The Supreme Personality of Godhead expanded himself into many. Expanded himself into many. As what? So he has Swa Ansha and Vibhinansha. Swa Ansha are his expansions. Vishnu, all Vishnu Tattva categories. Krishna, Balaram, Ram, Narsingadev, Vamandev, Varadev, Narayan, this, that, Vishnu. And then Vibhinansha, which are us, living entities. We all come from Krishna. For what? For his ever-increasing spiritual bliss. Ever increasing. It's not static spiritual bliss. It's always increasing. And the living entities are parts and parcels of this spiritual bliss. So we are part and parcel of his spiritual bliss. We are part and parcel of him. We could be enjoying unlimitedly, and not just unlimitedly, ever increasing. It's always increasing spiritual bliss. And we could be part of that. Always increasing. But what did we do? They also have partial independence. Partial independence, not full independence. Partial. Krishna is fully independent. He is Swarat. We are partially independent. They also have partial independence, but by misuse of their independence, misuse of the independence. What's the misuse of independence? That we wanted to enjoy separately from Krishna. When the service attitude, we have this service attitude eternally, we should develop this, cultivate this service attitude, or remove the covering of the enjoying attitude. But since we are in the material world, we try to enjoy. When the service attitude is transformed into the propensity for sense enjoyment. So in the material world, this service attitude in the spiritual world is transformed into propensity for sense enjoyment. Because in spiritual world, we are part and parcel of Krishna. We understand we're part and parcel of Krishna. We are supposed to serve Krishna and enjoy unlimitedly spiritual bliss. But we didn't want that. We were said, no. I want to enjoy separately from you, Krishna. Separately from you means I want to enjoy my senses. I don't want to serve you. Somehow we developed this, this attitude. So then Prabhupada says they transformed into the propensity for sense enjoyment. They come under the sway of lust. So we come under the control of lust. This material creation is created by the Lord to give facility to the conditioned souls. Conditioned souls. Souls are always perfect, divine, pure, but we have fallen into the material world. We have conditioned ourselves. What is a conditioning? Conditioning is, it's simple to understand. Those of us who are born in Indian body or born in India, we have conditions that we enjoy these things. Eating wise, we have different habits that we have developed over the years. Okay, if I don't get my parathas in the morning, I'll not be happy. In South India, if we go, if they don't get idli sambar in the morning, they'll not be happy. You switch the foods and both of them will be upset. We come to America, if they don't get their bread or cereal in the morning, they won't be happy. If they don't get coffee in the morning, they won't be happy. So it's conditioning. Body is the same, human body. So same thing about when we get into animal body, then when we are in the pig's body, then that mentality, that conditioning is there. If I don't get stool, I will not be happy. If I get into tiger's body, if I don't get my meat, I won't be happy. It's all conditioning. So this material creation is created by the Lord to give facility to the conditioned souls to fulfill these lustful propensities. But Krishna knows they're not going to be fulfilled. This is how he has designed it. And when completely baffled by prolonged lustful activities, completely baffled, frustrated, this is what Maya does to us, frustrate us. And even if we have everything, still we cannot enjoy because we get old, we get diseased. And then there are all kinds of adibhotik, adhyatmik, adidevik klesha. So adibhotik, other people are going to give me problems, miseries. Adhyatmik, my own mind, my own body will give me miseries. Adidevik, controlled by demigods. Too much rain, no rain, too heat, too cold, snow, this, the earthquakes, hurricanes, all controlled by demigods. They're meant to give us miseries. Who can run away from this? Nobody can. And when somebody is completely baffled by prolonged lustful activities, the living entities begin to inquire about their real position. So Krishna says later on, the four kinds of people come to me, right? Artho, Jigyasur, Artharthi, Jnani, cha Bharatresha. Artha, first he spoke about Artha. The Artha means those who are distressed. Artharthi, those who want money. Artha, Artharthi, Jigyasu, those who are inquisitive. So, but that thought of inquiry doesn't just come on its own. Until we've been frustrated and we have developed some kind of knowledge, some kind of association, we don't even want to think about Krishna. That's why even in India, mostly people say, "Oh, you're so young. You take up this devotion service when you're old." Why? Because youth means to go enjoy opposite sex, enjoy, make money, go travel, this, see that, do this nonsense, drink, and just like somebody was saying, oh, my mother was, it was an American boy, and he was saying, my mother was happy if I was going to clubs and bars and this and that, but she wasn't happy when I was going to the temple. But this is a situation everywhere, actually. Parents are not happy when they see the child is going to the temple and associating with devotees and wearing dhoti kurta and chanting Hare Krishna. They're not happy. So after a long time, one gets a chance to come in association. But the conditioned souls, we want to fulfill our lustful propensities, and we are we basically die trying to satisfy ourselves, but it doesn't happen. Satisfaction will never be there. Never. This is how Krishna has designed the system. This inquiry is the beginning of the Vedanta Sutras, wherein it is said, Athat Brahman Jigyasa. Athat Brahma Jigyasa. At means now you have come into the human form of life. Oh Jiva, now since you have got this human form of life, do Brahma Jigyasa. Inquire into the Supreme. Don't just still inquire of, oh, where is food and where is shelter and where is sex and how can I defend myself? Eating, sleeping, mating, defending. These four activities. No, don't just think of those. Inquire into the Supreme. And who is the Supreme? And the Supreme is defined in Srimad Bhagavatam as Janmadhyasya Yata. The origin of everything is a Supreme Brahman. So many times people say, origin of everything, so everything nonsense, all the crimes and the terrorist activities that we see is coming from Supreme. Everything comes from the Supreme Lord, but when it comes through our consciousness, it becomes perverted. Killing also comes from the Lord. Lord kills so many demons. But the demons, they get this killing propensity, but they use it in a wrong way. They use it against the Lord, use it against Lord's creation, Lord's devotees. They use it in a wrong way. But the killing propensity comes from the Lord, yes. Now it depends upon us, how we want to use it. The origin of everything is the Supreme Brahman. Therefore, the origin of lust is also in the Supreme. Because it has to come from Krishna. It cannot develop on its own over here in the material world. But Krishna doesn't talk about lust. What Krishna has is pure love for his devotees, for Srimati Radharani, for gopis, for Yashoda Maya, Nanda Baba, and other different kind of love. But that is love. Love means to serve. Lust means to enjoy, try to enjoy. Krishna also wants to serve his gopis, his devotees. How? Because they want to serve him by their love, Krishna gives them the opportunity because it pleases gopis. Krishna is Atmaram. He doesn't need anybody. But to please his devotees, he acts in these ways that gives pleasure. He gets bound up by Mother Yashoda to give pleasure to Yashoda. What pleasure she's getting by binding him up and beating him, trying to beat him up. It increases, it heightens her mood of mother. So this is Krishna's love for his devotees. But when this love comes into our perverted mental condition, it becomes lust. That everybody should serve me, serve my senses, serve my desires. If therefore lust is transformed into love for the Supreme, or transformed into Krishna consciousness, or in other words, desiring everything for Krishna, then both lust and wrath can be spiritualized. So desiring everything for Krishna. Now again, it's a very, very subtle thing to understand. Love for Krishna or desiring everything for Krishna. But in the process, if I don't love Krishna's creation, Krishna's devotees, and try to engage them in service of Krishna, then that is not love for Krishna. That is still love for my senses, or my desires, or my ideas. Like in America, they say my way or highway. I want to serve Krishna and everybody else wants to serve Krishna, but I tell them, if you don't serve Krishna the way I want you to, then get out of here. That's not love. That is still lust. Because again, I'm thinking of my way only. It's subtle. It's very, very subtle. But this is how ingrained this lustful propensities is in our heart. They're very deep. And Prabhupada said, then both lust and wrath can be spiritualized if we use it in service of Krishna. Hanumanji, the great servitor of Lord Ram, exhibited his wrath by burning the golden city of Ravan. But by doing so, he became the greatest devotee of the Lord. Hanumanji did not burn down the city of Ravan, the city of Lanka, for his sake. It was only for service of Ram. Although Ram did not tell him to burn down the city of Lanka. Ram only gave him that ring to be given to Mother Sita as a message that I'm coming. But Hanumanji wanted to serve Ram in more ways. But at the same time, Hanumanji, his conscious, again, it's a question of consciousness. His consciousness was so properly situated. He never thought he's the one burning down the city of Lanka. And later on, he thought, how did I burn down the city of Lanka? I didn't have anything. But it was Ram who wanted to work through me. So he provided everything. He provided the cloth, the rui, the cotton, the oil, the fire. And he gave me the strength to jump around, to burn down the city. He gave me the strength to come out of the clutches of that Brahmastra and so many things. So again, desiring to serve Krishna, desiring to love Krishna, a devotee understands that on my own, I'm nothing. All I have is little desire to serve him. Rest everything. Capabilities come from him, sources, resources, everything he provides. I am nothing. My only job is to desire to serve him. And when I get whatever I get, I use it in his service. Not that I'm getting whatever I'm getting by my own manipulations, by my own strength, mental, physical, or any other strength. I'm getting it. That will make me proud. Then pride means I'm serving my senses. I'm not serving Krishna. So this is what Krishna wants. He doesn't want us to get proud of ourselves, because everything ultimately is going to come from Krishna. Nothing is our. Later on, he will explain. Purusha, I am the strength of all the strong. So what strength do we have? Nothing. 10,000 part of the tip of the hair. What can we have? Nothing. All we should have. Just, yes, Krishna, I want to serve you. But more pure the desire is, more help will come. If the desire is not that pure, then we can get, according to our karmas, whatever we have done in the previous karmas, we'll be supplied. But that won't be his mercy. That will be just a karmic reactions, and he can give us reactions the way he wants to. He's not dependent on anybody. So it's the karmic reactions or his mercy. How do we know which one is which? If I'm getting some resources, some capabilities, power, position, or whatever, it depends on how pure I am, how surrendered I am. But the desire, if the desire is there, and according to our capability or our qualification or eligibility, entitlement, Krishna will provide. And he can provide much more if he wants to. That's up to him. But the idea is that we develop love for him, develop a desire to serve him. Serve him means serve him, service devotee, service creation also. That is real service. And Prabhupada writes, here also in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord induces Arjuna to engage his wrath upon his enemies for the satisfaction of the Lord, just like Hanumanji did. Therefore, lust and wrath, when they're employed in Krishna consciousness, become our friends instead of our enemies. So lust and wrath can also be transformed. Sometimes people say, because sadhus, qualities of sadhus or devotees is they should not be lustful, they should not get angry, they should not do this, they should, according to them, they should be just like stones, always smiling. No, Hanumanji did not smile when he was burning down the city of Lanka. Arjun did not smile when, after listening to whole Bhagavad Gita, he is going to fight. He is going to kill so many of warriors. In fact, he is going to kill most of the warriors on the opposite side. And that killing cannot happen. The fighting cannot happen if he was smiling and he was all loving. His love is for Krishna. That's also, again, also people say, oh, as devotees or sadhus, you should not be, of course, we don't think of killing, but you should not be killing anybody. You should always be pally-pally with everybody, goody-goody with everybody. No, Arjun wasn't pally-pally with Kauravas. Association or friendship, friendliness has to be with devotees, not with those inimical of devotees. Cannot be. As a soul, yes, we are compassionate for every soul. That is different, but that doesn't mean compassionate for the body or the nonsense activities of everybody. Cannot be compassionate for that. Of course, at the same time, we're compassionate or thinking that why is this person wasting his valuable human life for all these nonsense activities? One of the Mahajans is Yamarajji. He is one of the 12 Mahajans, only 12 authorities, and he is one of them. And what is the service of Yamarajji? Does he get, no, don't hurt this entity and don't give him punishment? No, he gives the fiercest, worst of the punishments. But he is still a Mahajan. And the punishment is for the rectification, for the lesson to be learned for the soul. So he doesn't commit that sin again. So we sometimes mix up things, thinking, no, you can only do this and you can only do that. No. Dhume na vriyate vanir yatha darsho malena cha yatho labena vrito garbhas tatha tene dama vritam. As fire is covered by smoke, as a mirror is covered by dust, or as an embryo is covered by the womb, the living entity is similarly covered by different degrees of lust. So different degrees. So there are 3 degrees mentioned here. Fire covered by smoke, mirror covered by dust, or embryo covered by the womb. So there are 3 degrees of covering of the living entity by which his pure consciousness is obscured. This covering is but lust under different manifestations, like smoke in the fire, dust on the mirror, and womb about the embryo. When lust is compared to smoke, it is understood that the fire of living spark can be little perceived. In fact, that is considered as covering on the souls in human form of life, because very soon they can perceive their Krishna consciousness, their understanding that we are part and parcel of Krishna. So because of fire covered by smoke, it's very, very temporary covering and very thin covering. In other words, when the living entity exhibits his Krishna consciousness slightly, he may be likened to the fire covered by smoke. Although fire is necessary where there is smoke, there is no overt manifestation of fire in the early stage. This stage is like the beginning of Krishna consciousness. So beginning of Krishna consciousness, or human form also it is mentioned, that is the covering is like fire covered by smoke. Then the next example, dust on the mirror. Dust on the mirror refers to a cleansing process of the mirror of the mind by so many spiritual methods. The best process is to chant the holy names of the Lord. So that is Chetodarpan Marjana. But dust on the mirror can also means the covering is little more dense. So that could be compared to either animals or birds, because that covering, from that stage, they can be evolved into human forms. So that covering is still little less, more than the fire and the smoke, but less thick. And they can also be engaged in the service of the Lord. Animals can also be engaged. Birds can also be engaged. And the embryo covered by the womb is an analogy illustrating a helpless position. For the child in the womb is so helpless that he cannot even move. This stage of living conditions can be compared to the trees. The trees are also living entities, but they have been put in such a condition of life by such a great exhibition of lust that they are almost void of all consciousness. The covered mirror is compared to the birds and beasts, and the smoke-covered fire is compared to the human being. So the trees, they are in the living entity who got the body of a tree is in so much of ignorance, so much of covering. It will take long time for him to come out, because to remove that covering. And there is a tree, they say, and I haven't seen it, but there is a tree in California. It is about 2,000 or 3,000 years old, maybe more. And the tree is standing there for such a long time. And the living entity is stuck in that tree's body. Can we imagine the covering or how the consciousness is covered of that tree, that entity? Such a long time, still standing there, still standing, still waiting, going through all sorts of changes of weather, and some people must be coming and cutting through it, or doing all sorts of nonsense to him, but he has to just stand there and tolerate. So how strong that covering is that he cannot get out of that body. In the form of human being, the living entity may revive a little Krishna consciousness, and if he makes further development, the fire of spiritual life can be kindled in the human form of life. By careful handling of the smoke in the fire can be made to blaze. Therefore, the human form of life is a chance for the living entity to escape the entanglement of material existence. In the human form of life, one can conquer the enemy lust by cultivation of Krishna consciousness under able guidance. So in this human form of life that we have, is very thin covering of ignorance or of lust, and we can remove it, and we can get on with our Krishna consciousness. Avritam jnanam etena jnanino nityavarina kamarupena kaunteya dushpurena nalena cha. Thus a wise living entity's pure consciousness becomes covered by his eternal enemy in the form of lust, which is never satisfied and which burns like fire. So eternal enemy in the form of lust. So eternal, why eternal? This is eternal only in the material world. In spiritual world, there is no lust. So, but in the material world, we have been here for such a long time, it can be called eternal. It is said in the Manusmriti that lust cannot be satisfied by any amount of sense enjoyment. Just as fire cannot be extinguished by a constant supply of fuel. The more fuel we give to the fire, and the fire keeps on burning, it's not just going to go away, not going to be extinguished. So same thing about lust. More fuel we give, more items for enjoyment we give, it doesn't go away. In the material world, the center of all activities is sex. And thus this material world is called Maithunya Agar, or the shackles of sex life. In the ordinary prison house, criminals are kept within bars. Similarly, the criminals who are disobedient to the laws of Lord are shackled by sex life. Advancement of material civilization on the basis of sense gratification means increasing the duration of material existence of a living entity. Therefore, this lust is a symbol of ignorance by which living entity is kept within the material world. And we think that I'm enjoying, I'm happy, I'm so comfortable, or I'll work hard and get some more possessions for my comfort, and then I'll be satisfied. I'll be happy. If I'm in a small town in India, if I move to Delhi or Bangalore and get a job in a multinational company, I'll be happy. I'll be satisfied. But won't be happy or satisfied, because those who are already working in those companies, they're not happy or satisfied. Okay, if I move to America, I'll be happy. But those who are living in America, they are not happy or satisfied. How can you be? So this illusion, this is illusion. This is the what they call the oasis. We think the water is there, but water is not there. Therefore, this lust is a symbol of ignorance by which the living entity is kept within the material world. While one enjoys sense gratification, it may be that there is some feeling of happiness, but actually that so-called feeling of happiness is the ultimate enemy of the sense enjoyer. Because then he doesn't want to give it up, and he doesn't want to take up the real happiness, which is the spiritual happiness, in the which is only obtained by serving the Lord. That real happiness is what we want, not this enemy of the sense enjoy, which is called lust. But this is what is binding us, keeping us in the material world, this lust. And we think we are happy. Cannot be. And that is why these instructions are given by Krishna. Krishna himself comes to show us where is the real happiness. Krishna sends his representatives to show us, to tell us, to teach us, to instruct us. But if we still don't get it, then it will just take a long time. That's all. Okay, I guess I can stop here. See anybody has any questions or comments?
Thank you, Prabhuji. Nice class.
Thank you.
Prabhuji, this we are talking about the lust. On the Swargalokas, that Devi Devtas have more comfort and all, they are also covered with such lust?
Anybody who has material body is covered by lust.
Oh, okay. So they are also covered, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
But they are in a better position. They are all Vaishnavas. They all
Hmm.
want to serve Krishna. They all have capabilities or get opportunities to serve Krishna directly. But lust is still there.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Prabhuji, anger is also there, na? Because Indra also gets angry very fast and all that. जो हम लोगों ने अब तक पढ़ा है.
Yeah. And also Indra, he is the chief of all the demigods. And anybody who tries to take up his position, when he gets angry and he devises all sorts of means to break the tapasya of all the sages or anybody, and he gets in trouble also for that. But he is a devotee. In the Rari Lokam, Vyakulam Lokam Ridyanti Yoge Yoge, Krishna, Bhagavatam says Krishna comes to kill the enemies of Indra. So Indra is a great devotee. He is father of Arjun. Arjun is his son. But yes, material body means this. Yeah, insecurity is there. He is not a pure devotee, but he is a devotee. Definitely, he is a devotee.
But Prabhuji, another question: do they also have a material body like we have?
Material body like we have, yes, but more subtle.
Okay.
It is see, every body in the material world is made of earth, water, fire, air, ether, and subtle body made of mind, intelligence, false ego. Every body. Now, those on the sun planet, in their body, fire element is much more, so that the bodies don't get burnt in the sun planet.
Okay. Remember, we read this.
So yeah, so made of these elements, but different permutations, combinations.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Thank you, Mata.
Hare Krishna.
Chalo, you all have a safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.